Hamilton from Audible Elegance, Cincinnati, Ohio. I have a store located on Montgomery Road in Cincinnati, across from Montgomery Cyclery. We do work on Facebook, Instagram, and X. I also write a monthly blog. And please do subscribe to the channel, and because it helps us improve things. Helps us improve things at home. We actually want to get a stand for my wife to do the filming, because right now she has to hold it, and with the medication she has to take to prevent heart rejection, her hands can get a little shaky once in a while. Anyway, she raised a good question after I did an earlier video about how does the average person learn to evaluate a system. And this is something I love to teach in the store. And when I'm there, I'll take the time to do it. And it takes about a half hour, an hour to show people what I'm talking about. But I'll try to do it verbally today. Now, when I talk about rhythm, the tool I use is my foot. And I use my foot the exact same way a musician uses the foot, which is to keep oneself in time. They'll either be tapping their foot, or if you watch a video, they'll be taking their hand and tapping their side because they're trying to keep the count. The other thing to notice in concerts is that there are as many speakers pointed at the musicians as there are typically pointed to the audience. Again, they're trying to make sure they stay in time. Now, don't expect live musicians to perform at the same level of the recording. And the reason for that is that they do take after take years ago, because they only had tape machine, that was it. So the Beatles' Good Vibration took 24 hours straight until they recorded the song right. Today they have multi-sync and can deal with that. But tapping your foot mechanically puts you into the same motion as whoever you're listening to. And then while you're tapping your foot to that musician, simply try to see if your foot is going down at the same time as another musician is starting to play their note or sing a word. And if you feel comfortable in moving between the different musicians while you've picked up the count, great. If, on the other hand, you feel like you should be pedaling a bicycle, that's wrong. And that's when you realize that they're not on the same count. Now, I don't recommend using classical music for this, because classical music changes its tempo fairly quickly or often, unless you use something like the Haydn's Clock Symphony or something like that. It can be fairly difficult if you're not accustomed to do it. Once you learn to pay attention to the rhythm, then you can go running through any type of music and realize, yes, this is right, or no, it's not. Now, another example of why people can tell the difference, and you don't need an audiophile to tell you how to listen, is we've all heard street musicians, playing. And invariably, they have a case in front of them, and, it might be a guitar case or anything, and there's some money in it. Now, depending upon their quality, you come away with one of three opinions. One, they are so bad that the money put in that case is sympathy, okay? Two, they're okay musicians, they're doing okay. And probably the money they put in there is what they put in there to make you feel guilty, not putting more in there when in fact they've, they've primed the pump. And the third experience is that they are so good that you're willing and happily put the money in there. So you can tell that right away in rhythm. If they're not even playing in time, they're just kind of odd, they're not good. And I had this personal experience many, many years ago in Cincinnati, where these two guys were playing like bongos or drums on one of the causeways going over to a Bengals football game. And the first couple years, they were pretty sad, okay? But after a few years, they actually, while performing the same music, were actually pretty good at it. So you can recognize this. The other question I raise to people, if they don't think they can tell the difference, is When's the last time you heard a good band at a wedding reception? Okay? And most people haven't. And it doesn't matter how loud they play. Actually, it makes them more annoying. Nor do you find everybody tucked back in the corner of the building saying, God, they sound really good back here. I wish I could sit down. No. Poor musicianship permeates the entire environment. End of story. Okay? Frankly, I don't want to hear otherwise. I've never heard lousy musicians sound good in a sweet spot. All right, which is another audiophile thing. But that has to do with stereo, not with music. When it comes to what you would refer to as the tune or the relationship of notes, that's where I encourage people to simply hum along. If the music is performed right, you should have a good sense of where the next note is going to be and hum right into it. If there's something wrong, you find yourself stopping the hum and restarting it, trying to pick up the right, how should we say, key. And again, very quickly, you get lost. So the poorer the system is in performing note-to-note relationships, the quicker you get lost by simply trying to hum the tune. Now, and I find this kind of interesting because a lot of the music for years that the Cincinnati Symphony would play was music that you could hum along to. And there was a time when we had a conductor who was extraordinarily good, German conductor, who proceeded to get into modern music, avant-garde stuff. And I was terrorized because I know the level of performance the symphony was doing at that point. What I didn't realize was how good Maestro Gielan had perfected getting the orchestra to play extremely well. And when they started playing things like Janacek, it was stunning, absolutely stunning. Whereas years before, under another conductor, I don't think they would have been able to pull that off at all. So again, you can tell the difference in musical performance in classical, but you got to learn, to listen for it by using simpler stuff, kind of like training wheels, and then advancing forward. So when I talk about rhythm and pitch, those are the things I'm talking about. These are normal things you're experienced with. I've referred to the piano in another video where people peck it around. You eventually start establishing a relationship. Now, when it comes to emotion, this is one where some audiophiles get really hung up. And typically you can find them because they're listening to some sort of female crooner who, they think is singing to them, and it's not. They're singing to an audience. And what you do is it's more than the tonality of the voice. You listen to it as to whether the words sound sung or they sound spoken. And this is best done in a comparison. You can pick this off. And whether they feel like, you feel like they really mean those words or not. I drove my staff absolutely crazy for years by using Eric Clapton and Unplugged. When he's singing about the loss of his own child, it's remarkable that as a singer he could even do that. But you should be able to hear within that song how painful it was, that experience for him. And on some systems, you can't, and on other systems, you simply are in amazement that he could actually do it. Years ago, I had a situation where there was the audiophile reference CD player. It was called the Pioneer PD65 because it had a stable platter mechanism. And the platter mechanism may have been great, and I invited someone to bring this in and compare it against the California Audio Labs. And I chose to use The Empire Strikes Back music. And what was really funny is when I played it on this Pioneer PD65, the Imperial March came across as if it was like you wanted to join these people. This was like a Marine Corps ad, let's go for it. The minute I put it over on a California Audio Labs machine, you could recognize that the music was written in a minor key. Minor keys are typically very unsettling. As a matter of fact, 17 of the 21 movements of The Empire Strikes Back were in a minor key. It was a brilliant use of music to set you up for wanting the third, movie, so that you had resolution, because minor keys beg resolution. So if you're listening to something in a minor key and it's not unsettling to you, there's something wrong. Okay? There's a choice of using a minor key to evoke that emotional response. So again, with singers, even in their voice themselves in the inflections, there should be this emotional tag to what they're singing about. So if they're singing about something that's happy, they sound happy. If they're sad, they sound sad. And the whole range of human emotion. And that's the simple way of doing it. And if a shop tells you, of what you should be listening for in terms of, doesn't this sound like this or this? Be very careful about that. Unless they're trying to guide you to teach you how to ride the bicycle yourself, you're in trouble. Because if they get you stuck on training wheels, then they've got control. I try to teach my customers to be free of any salesman, including me. I let them use their senses that they naturally have. There's no such thing as audiophile ears. There are people who are trained to listen for things, yes, but they don't have special ears, okay? So let's put that one aside. So when I talk about these elements, this is what I look for. I know some of my English audience is going to have some fun with me on this because they've referred to it, I think, as brat. And they have their own quibbles with it, and that's fine. But if I can be taught tools that are more effective, I'll use them. Right now, I haven't. So there we are. Thank you.